PincheAls.
Hey everybody, another episode of PincheAls Garage here, and it's time to remove the oil pan on our 1.8T big turbo build. So this is actually what we call a hybrid oil pan because it has a stamped steel bottom and then a cast aluminum frame. This is really good for lowered cars because stamped steel bends, it doesn't crack. However, I've seen these crack before, but they gotta hit these things hard. So to remove the oil pan, there's a series pretty much all around the pan of 10mm bolts. Let's get those all taken off. There's no really specific way to remove these. Literally just start taking them off. Make sure you have a baggie ready, set aside to put these somewhere. Because there's a lot of them and you don't want to lose these. One thing that these bolts are very, very notorious for is stripping when you reinstall the pan. I've met a lot of people with these bolts like stripped or missing because these guys, a lot of people just put them in crooked. They don't take their time like putting them back in and torquing them to spec. Another thing about these pans, they don't need an actual gasket. You just got to use some RTV. However, you want to use Volkswagen RTV. It does a really good job of preventing oil leaks, and it seals very, very nicely. Make sure you have your magnet tool to get some of the bolts in the hard to reach places. Once this is taken off, we'll show you guys what the bottom of a motor looks like. If you guys ever seen a bottom, you know, I know a lot of people that have Mark 4s have never seen the inside of their motor before. So this will be pretty cool. Especially for a lot of you new guys that are buying Mark 4s now because they're so cheap. This is a good way to, you know, see what is required to build a motor. Maybe you can buy a spare motor and build it on the side. It's a fun project. Because everything else that's around the motor, like fuel system and smog system and all the electrical, it's really easy to repair. Cars are good at looking for stuff or hunting per se. A motor though, a lot of weird things can happen that won't happen immediately. That can happen down the line when you're like driving it kind of rough. Alright, so I broke them all loose. Typically what I like to do, then I just go super quick with a nice long extension. Notice I didn't take those out because my fingers don't fit in there. That's why I have the magnet to pick them up. Make sure you make your little baggie, sandwich bag, and label what this is for. You don't want to lose these bolts. They're easy to get if you do lose some. They're a pretty common bolt, but it's just good to have the OEM ones. If you ever cracked a pan before, you guys know how much work is involved in this. It's especially if you're not on bags and you're static, and you guys realize that the oil pan sits really low. If you guys own a VR6, that sits really low. It's usually what hits first before you hit anything else on that car, on a static car. 1.8s tend to sit a little bit higher. If you guys ever owned a VR6 or a 1.8T, one cool upgrade you guys can do to prevent oil pans from hitting is engine spacers from Euro Tuning. Super cool, easy to install. Lifts your engine up an inch. It also helps prevent binding in your axles, so your axles last a lot longer too. So it's actually a complete upgrade if you think about it. And they're very inexpensive, about 110, 120 bucks after shipping and taxes. I'd say that's a win-win. You don't have to replace your axles every freaking 3 months. Because you know I love replacing axles. So once all the bolts removed, get your trusty flathead screwdriver. You know, it's one of my tools that I use the most. And find yourself a good little pry spot. Just like that. There's another spot right here, the little notch right here that lets you pry on it. Once you've done that, grab each corner, flip over, and that's the oil pan removed. Pretty much in a nutshell. Put this on the ground for right now. So what you see here now is the bottom of the motor. So this is the actual oil pickup, the oil pump, the chain that runs the pump that's actually on the crank right there. There's a cool little cover here. It's held by a 10 mil right there. So we got to take all that apart. This is actually a good time to actually look and see if oil changes were done pretty constant. And you could tell by how clean the bottom of the engine is. If it's really clean and you don't see like dark burn stains on it, it's a very good sign that the engine is healthy, because they kept constant oil changes on it. So the next thing will be this bolt right here, where the oil pump is at. It's just a 10 millimeter. A long 10 millimeter. Leave that there for the moment. I'm not gonna like throw it away. Leave this inside your pan. And now here's an even better view of your crank here. And then what I'm going to do, if you have a 19 mil multi-point, you can actually just spin it so you guys can see it. It's pretty cool to look at. I love how just motors just work. It's so cool. And just see, the two middle ones are the main pistons, and then the two other ones are the opposites, and that's how 4 cylinders work. There's always one in a power stroke, one always in the intake stroke, so they balance each other out. So there's always one piston doing something different along the way. So if all of them did the exact same thing the entire time, these motors would just like, they vibrate right crazy and stuff like that. Back in the day, that's how it was. So they finally understand, you know, how to make these motors balance and run really smooth. Or motors in general, the internal combustion engine, if you want to say that. So I'm just looking right now, I'm inspecting what else do I need to do to take everything off. And for the moment, looks like I'm going to need to take these off that holds the oil pump in place. And then there's a little guide right here. That little guide is what keeps the tension on this chain right here. So we got to be careful not to break anything like that. If not, we're going to have to replace that as well. But I'm just looking inside, making sure I don't see any weird marks. But it looks like it's going to be a healthy motor to get cleaned up and rebuilt. Now what you're going to need too, if you guys see here, on your rod caps, these right here, you'll see that they're actually star bits. They're not Torx, they're the opposite of a Torx, I guess. It's I don't know the exact name for them, but you're going to need these. These are like T30 or T40s. I'll double check when I get my bits out, my sockets out, so I can give you guys the right size socket for that. Looks like the cam or the crank caps are going to be 16mm bolts all around. These are also, all the crank hardware has to be removed in order and installed in order as well. So be careful not to mix things up. That's a big thing too to remember. So now the next thing you guys need to do is, I would personally just take off the rear main seal, and then the front main seal was going to have to come off as well, so the whole crank can come off. For that to happen, we have to press the pulley off of here. So I'll get to that in just